Hello everyone, in today's video we're going to be moving on to Gemini from Mercury. Now this is going to be interesting because Gemini is a significantly more complicated Mercury. It's a significantly more complicated rocket than Mercury was. At the same time as it's actually got some really neat quirks to it that I really enjoy. So let's go ahead and get started. So first things first, I take a look in here, I immediately notice the fact that I have a person who I get to ride with today. Unfortunately, there's no co-op in this game yet, so that person is just going to have to kind of enjoy the view from where they're going to be sitting. The other thing we have to worry about now is we have a flight computer on this thing. Yes, an actual real-world computer that is tape-based and takes 10 minutes to load a program. We also have a really nice OMs, we have an RCS, and we have a very complicated sequencer tree here with all sorts of different functionality that we're going to use. So unfortunately, the timer is already going, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. So let's go here, full internal power. So the first thing we want to do is we want to get all of our batteries all nice and warmed up. Remember, we use both batteries and fuel cells on takeoff in order to preclude the possibility of one system failing here, so at least we have the backup one. So we'll pop over to our fuel cells. Again, this is a much later version of Gemini. The earlier version of Gemini was battery only. So all right, we got everything good. We're going to go ahead and call them up and say, hey, we're switching to internal power. They're going to say, okay, a little angular light's going to pop on, and I'm going to go ahead and proceed, and we're good to go. I'm going to go ahead and do our pre-flight checks. We're going to go ahead and run it real quick. Remember, most of that I just did a second ago, but we do need to get the power turned on to the computer system. So we're going to turn this on. It's going to run through all of its memory addresses. Man, I love this. This is it. This is the keyboard you get. I love stuff like this. All right, let's go flip over here real quick. Go ahead and arm everything. We're going to need these. Otherwise, we're taking the Titan II with us. Go pop up above. We're going to make sure that our cooling system is activated in case it gets a little bumpy on the way up. Go flip all the systems on. We're going to make sure our suit fans in 1 and 2. So now we're going to confirm the OBC is completed. It is. Let's go ahead and play with it real fast because we can. All right, it's going to be 20,400 seconds. Okay, that's not bad. That's not bad. Clear that out. We don't need to worry about it. I wonder what our apoapsis height's going to be today. Boop, boop, boop. Go ahead and read that. Oop, I think it's 2056, I think. 56. 6,500 meters today, or I should say 6,532 miles. There we go. Got it. Okay, so we're going to confirm that everything looks good. We're going to press start. So once that's complete, we're going to go ahead and confirm that our platform is nice and aligned. This does take a minute. So this way this computer works is you had different functions and different sort of programs loaded. What you do is you rotate this slider to select the program, and then it would use this device over here to actually read it off of a tape. Now, the initial program, what they call pre-launch, has got all like the trigonometry and stuff on it, and it allows us to actually go ahead and line everything before we actually take off. So I'm just going to confirm we're lined up, which we are. We're going to set computer mode to 1. Remember, it takes 10 minutes for this program to load. So I'm not even going to worry about that. Remember, the original Gemini, we actually use this as a backup to the Titan's own internal computer. Do a radio check. Delightful. All right, I'm going to hit proceed. Read you 5x5. I'm going to press Roger. And look at that. We completed all our checks in 2 minutes. Now, this aircraft, I should say aircraft, what's that? Well, it's an aircraft now. It'll be a spacecraft once we get a little bit higher. It definitely has some interesting little switches and buttons above your head. And the pre-flight on this thing is a little bit more intense, which is why I chose to skip it for today. But one thing that I do like to do is there's this little one that lets you change the lighting setting. And I actually like to do that so I can see what's going on over here. It's just one of those things where it's not on a checklist anywhere, but it's just so convenient when you can actually see what you're doing here. I stick my head up a little bit so you can see it. Obviously, we've got all your RCS, so you can see all the different modes. Those of you who are familiar with the Apollo, which we'll take a look at a little later on, have already seen a lot of this kind of stuff. So again, we can switch to red mode because we're in combat mode. Downscope. All right, let's go ahead and fast forward time a little bit here to takeoff. There we go, 15 seconds. Stretch myself out here. Not that I can stretch myself out here. This is the Gusmobile, as we all know.
7.
I like how you got the little rings for like depressurizing and everything. It just seems really not safe.
2.
Ready? Hold on to something.
Ignition. Liftoff.
That's great. Bye-bye. Going up. There's a little roll program. You can see where I started to kick up a bunch of dust off the nose. Now, one thing I liked about Gemini is the fact that you could actually see what was going on during your flight here. Like you can see I got my fuel and my oxidizer for the first stage. You can see what engine we're running on right now, and you also have all the information for the second stage here. We also have this really groovy computer, which we'll play with a little bit later when we go to re-enter. This, of course, was another example of I'm going to take an ICBM and I'm going to put a person on the front of it. For those of you who are not familiar with this is a Titan II. It burns a really dangerous combination of fuels in order to make it possible possible to go ahead and climb. There's some interesting incidents that have happened with the particular oxidizer and a propellant that they use here, but fortunately for us, I don't have to worry about that today. We're not going to explode. If we were going to explode, we'd have to get really fast on that button that says the word abort, and cross our fingers that the tower works. Speaking of tower, there is no escape tower on a Gemini. On a Gemini, if you escape, you actually eject. I know you're sitting there going, wait, eject? Yeah, as in eject like we're an airplane. Cool. All right, let's continue our little climb here. We're going to monitor our computer. I don't actually have to run anything here. The reason I don't have to run anything is because, remember, the Titan II is actually bringing us into space directly with its own onboard systems. In an emergency, I could reach down here and actually push this button to basically override the Titan and let the onboard computer do all the work for us. Oh, getting bounced around. I can see we're starting to get to the low part of our fuel. Now, the neat thing is, as everybody knows, when you start running out of fuel in a rocket, your acceleration picks up because you're lighter. So you can see I'm up to, looks about 2 Gs, which, not terrible. Man, welcome to space. Now, the interesting thing is I actually shut music off in this game because as much as I loved it, it just was a little too intense. All right, you can see we're kind of zipping away. Goodbye, Florida. We'll miss you. Goodbye, Google Maps. We'll miss you too. All right, climbing up here, getting ourselves right into the sun. Feel bad for this crew because this acceleration gets a little extreme. So you can see we're about 10% less of our propellant, and we're pushing about 2 Gs. I believe at one point they actually shut off one of the engines in order, actually not for this one, for Apollo they shut off one of the engines in order to reduce the amount of stress that you kind of go under. Everybody knows the space shuttle goes actually the same way, but that's a little bit more complicated a system. All right, you can see we're about to bottom out. Oh boy, this is the fun part. And that's it. Everybody likes watching staging. Get the last couple drops of propellant inside that tank, and ka-chunk. Whoa, you get all sorts of angry red lights. Everything freaks out on you because it's an emergency. And there goes the booster, and here comes us. Look at how cute the second stage is. It's like this little tiny bus. It's like as big as we are. All right, so now we're going to go cruise around. You can notice that we're starting to nose down a little bit. Basically, what we're trying to do is pick up as much orbital velocity as we possibly can here. We've already got ourselves plenty of altitude. If you're curious, by the way, of the altitude, you can actually hit the C key. And there's this thing that gives you all sorts of neat little information. You could actually say, ascent data, attitude data. Boop, boop. Does this little dance. You can see what our attitude is, and you can also do ascent information. So you can see right now our vertical speed's coming down because we're picking up speed, but our orbital speed is more than half of the way there. And you can see our apogee is pretty significantly high. It's 150 kilometers. Again, our target is going to be quite a bit higher than that, but that's all right. Getting bounced around pretty good here. Just enjoying our little flight. I'm going to go ahead and take a look at my little checklist here. During ascent, we're supposed to confirm that everything's working. Again, everything's working fine. I just got to make sure I push these 2 buttons once the thing breaks off, because again, you don't want to be bringing that second stage with you when you're trying to zip around in the upper atmosphere here. Now, you can do this one in VR. A couple of people were asking about that. The only downside with VR and this one is, again, your checklists don't work as smoothly as they do when you're using them in non-VR. So kind of keep that in mind. All right, cruising. We're about halfway through our orbital speed here. Notice, by the way, that 7,400 is the magic number, by the way. Notice our acceleration is hovering around 1.8 Gs, and also notice that we're starting to get a little low on fuel here, but that's all right. Oh, that acceleration's getting a little real. At least it's not the Mercury. Oh man, that got nasty. Notice we're actually yawing slightly to the left here in order to give ourselves a slightly better arc, to give us a more communications range. If you actually pop up, there's a neat map, and you can see these little rings where you're actually in communication area. If you're not in these rings, you technically can't communicate with the folks on the ground, which is kind of interesting, but you can see are kind of like kind of one of these things. I just think that's so awesome they put that detail there. All right, we got about 1,400 to go. We're starting to get really low on fuel here. But again, you're not going to get your last couple drops of delta V out of this thing until you get really, 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 really low. Into the critical zone, we have 1,000 meters a second to go. Notice we're starting to descend. That's usually not a good thing. Getting bounced around. 400 meters per second to go. Our perigee is going to suddenly go boing and go flying up in a second. Watch this. Nope. Notice our ascent. Orbital velocity coming up. Come on, perigee. Start raising before we run out of fuel. There it is. And we are out of gas. Ha-ha. All right, let's go ahead and separate the spacecraft. We're going to pop the separate button with a nice ka-junk. We're going to jettison our fairing. And we're just going to let that kind of float away with all those little sparkles. Now, one thing I love about Gemini is all the wires that just connected us are still just kind of hanging out there. That seems safe, right? Okay, so we've got ourselves a little bit of residuals here. So we're going to go ahead and clean that up, turn on the OMs, flip it on, and we're going to play with the keys and the keyboard until this number says 0. Delightful. Now we're going to go ahead and adjust our left and right here. That's it. We did it. So now we're going to go ahead and click catch-up mode. So catch-up mode is going to enable us to circularize our orbit. Keep in mind that we're a pretty hefty distance away from our actual situation. If you look at our orbit itself, our apogee is at 225 kilometers. Our perigee is at 154. So we're basically, like if this is the globe, we're doing something like this. Obviously, that's exaggerated a bit, but it's exactly what we are. We're highly elliptic is what they'll call it. I'm going to go ahead and close these two panels because we don't need them. Let's go ahead and get ready for, we just entered orbit. All right, we're doing insertion now. We're going to go, we did all that stuff a while ago. We'll get that all ready in a second. Ascent is complete. Enable OMs. We've already run that one before. I just want to confirm. Platform line, booster engine, boop, boop, boo. We're going to go ahead and make sure, okay, that looks good to me. I'm just confirming everything makes sense. Platform alignment. We don't need to do that today. Circularize orbit. This we do need to do. So I'm going to go flip over here. We're going to go ahead and take a look at core 56. So I'm going to press 5-6 readout. So our altitude that we're going for, this is going to be our apogee. Let's go ahead and confirm, clear that out. We'll do 57, readout, 6596, clear, 56, read, 65. Okay, so we're going to be in a bit of a loop here, but that's all right. I'm not worried about it too much. Okay, so let's go ahead. We've just gotten ourselves up in orbit. Everything looks good. Let's go ahead and run our checklist here. So we're going to shut off ohms. We're going to come over here and we're going to click our batteries off because we have really, really good fuel cells on here. So we might as well put them to use. We're going to disable all these pyrotechnics that could blow us up. Obviously, you don't want them to be running at any time. We're going to go ahead and do a sequence light test. You're going to look over there real quick. Okay, looks good. So now we're going to shut off our secondary oxygen. We don't need it anymore because, again, we can use the onboard oxygen. Click. All set. And we're going to make sure that this is set to the off position because we don't need it anymore. And that's it. So now we're in orbit. So what we're waiting for now is we're waiting to go ahead and get our catch-up computer to actually be able to line us up so we can go ahead and do our circularization burn. So we can't do anything until that thing loads. Remember, it takes 10 minutes to load. So I'm seeing it's 4:32. Yeah, it's about 4:43. Come down here, press the start button. So you can see that we've got a 6 feet per second of extra delta V we need to use to go ahead and circularize ourselves. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to activate my ohms again. I'm actually going to make it so that the pointy end of the ship is actually forward, which is desirable. It'll only take a second to line ourselves up. We're going to make sure we're in platform mode and everything's ready to go. Now, here's the thing you got to watch out for. When you're circularizing, you need to wait until you get to your apogee in order to actually do that. So I'm going to clear this out real quick. I'm going to do core 73. And it's going to tell me how many seconds before I get to my apogee. In this case, I'm about 438 seconds away. So I'm not going to do anything yet until we get a little bit closer. So this is where everybody goofs up, because this doesn't constantly update. Fast forward. Dun, 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 dun. Remember, I'm fast forwarding very aggressively here. We're about 47 seconds away from when I need to do my burn to circularize. 32, 3, 4, 5. This is really, really helpful, by the way, when you're doing the Agena missions later on. 6, 5, 4, 3. Make sure everything's activated. 2, 1. Burn. Did it. That's it. We did it. Nicely done, everybody. Nicely done. Good job. Good job. So now we are mostly circularized to the orbit that we programmed in our computer, and everything else is ready to go. That's all we had to do. Not bad, right? All right. So let's go ahead and secure the OMs. We don't want this thing to be goofing around on us or anything like that. Let's go ahead and take a look at what we need to do for retro. So let's see here. So this is all set. We could, of course, fly this thing around if we wanted to. All this R&D stuff, this is for a very different day. This stuff's very complicated. We could do some EVA action. Of course, I'm going to save the EVA for another day because it's not exactly fun pushing this button. I think you can probably imagine what happens there. But we will go ahead and think about landing. So I'm going to go ahead and take a look here. We're going to do retro. Of course, we want to take a look at core 19 is going to be where we want to go. Whoops. Flip it over there and get ready. So we're going to go clear. Core 19 tells us how much time before we retro. So you can see right now it's 18,717 seconds before we begin our reentry process. So we're going to go ahead and get that all set up in a second. Now notice if I press readout, it doesn't update. The reason it doesn't update is remember that program that we just loaded? That program still takes 10 minutes before this number will start changing again. So I'm going to go ahead and close that out real quick. I'll fast forward time, give ourselves 10 minutes. Boop, 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 boop. That's it. So now if I start the program again, now if I hit read out, you'll notice the time can actually start changing because the computer is done loading. Wow. And we need a solid state drive for this. It'd be a lot more fun. Okay, let's start thinking about retro. So we're going to speed things up a little bit here. I'm going to request retro at the next apogee. Boop. So as soon as you do that, what they're going to do is they're going to adjust all of your computer programs from the ground to go ahead and represent this. So remember, we had 17,000 seconds. Now we have 4,500 seconds before we have to re-enter. Oh, God. So that's pretty scary stuff. All right, let's go ahead and get started. So 5 minutes to retro. We're not going to bother with any of that. But what I will do, and this is just something from experience here, I'm going to go ahead and set my clock earlier because it's nice and irritating to work with this thing if you've never done that. Let's see, which way are we going, down or up? It's probably going up, right? Stand by. Okay, let's decrease it. Again, if you click it to this point, it's going to decrease it. We're going to go down to 10 minutes. What an old school timer. This thing's kind of fun to play with. The 10 minutes is just going to be helpful for us. 19, 18, 17, 16. Imagine if you had to set your VCR clock like this. Okay, I'll switch to seconds mode. We're going to drop 2 clicks this way. And we're going to drop 7 clicks that way. Ta-da! We're going to set this to the down position, but we're going to leave it at stopped. The only reason we're doing this is so that when it is time to go ahead and start landing, we're ready to go. Let's go ahead and quickly calculate how long it's going to take us. Let's see, it takes 60 seconds, 10 minutes. So 600 seconds is when we have to start freaking out a little bit here. So I'm going to go ahead and take a look over here. I'm going to check my checklists here because I want to make sure I have plenty of time to get the reentry computer loading. Because again, this thing takes a little while. Just confirming everything looks good here. Again, I'm just doing some mental. Okay, so we're going to do the reentry computer at T-minus 5 minutes before we get there. Oh boy. Okay, so now what we do is we hit read out, and then we press fast forward time. Well, we don't just fast forward time, we really fast forward time. Try to do this as carefully as I can. Remember, 600 is the magic number here. Dun, dun, dun. Oh, God, we missed it. And that's why you don't trust me for any of these things. All right, let's begin our reentry checklist. So first of all, we want to make sure this is blunt and forward because we're going to be landing backwards. Turn on the ohms because it's got to turn us around. All right, let's begin. 5 minutes to retro. Run. Okay, first things first, we're going to shut off our coolant system. We don't want to be freezing on the way down, I suppose. Shut that off. We're going to make sure we have power so that we can separate all of our good stuff. We're going to do our indicate retro attitude button. I'm going to go ahead and pop this thing open. Remember, this does not light up until you're 5 minutes to go. So if you come over here right now, 5 minutes would say 300. Right now it's at 455. So we'll be a little more careful this time. All right, looks good. You can watch all my electrical power slowly draining. All right, watch this. And we have 5 minutes to retro burn now. Got it. So we're going to go ahead and bop that button. Now what we're going to do is we're going to turn on the batteries. Again, you want to make sure your batteries are running because you know exactly what's going to happen if they're not. And we're going to disengage the fuel cells completely. We don't need these things banging around as we're coming on our descent here. So now it's time to go ahead and start separating everything. But again, these lights aren't going to start flashing and honking at us until we get a little bit closer. They say, of course, the warning about the computer. Let's see here. I'm making it. Let's see. Okay, we'll separate everything real quick. All right, separate ohms line. We're going to separate that as well. We're going to go snap that off also. We're going to separate my electrical. Separate my adapter. Ooh, felt that one. Now we're going to set the computer to mode reentry. We're going to make sure all of my really critical fuses are ready to go. Notice my little thing turned green. I'm going to go take a look at the bottom. Again, we've got about 5 minutes to go here. Go ahead and read it out real fast. 253 seconds before things start getting really noisy. All right, so 30 seconds to retro. We're going to double check to make sure that's ready to go. A lot of times I run this one early because nothing bad happens if you run it earlier. Delightful. Make sure all that's red. You don't have to touch that until that little light turns green. Again, that'll be 30 seconds to go. Take a look over here. I'm going to read out about 10 more times. Make sure. Remember, we don't have a working computer. So how are we going to know exactly how much time it is? Well, lucky for us, I did kind of catch that out of the corner of my eye, so I'm not too worried there. Speed up time a little bit. Arm auto retro, click. And off we go. Retro rockets firing. Now, the interesting thing here is I think I forgot to shut off OMS, which is funny because we don't have an OMS anymore. All right, we're reducing. Notice our perigee is now significantly decreased. We're at a bit of an oblique angle here. All right, make sure that's set correctly. Looks good. I believe when we just fired our re-entry rockets, we've actually fired them at a bit of an angle, which is a shame on me because that probably just got us killed. Lame. Yeah, we definitely slowed down enough to re-enter, though. I'm looking at my vertical speed. It's more than enough. This is going to be a bit bumpy. Sorry about that, everyone. So the lesson to be learned here is make sure that you've activated the RCS system prior to engaging your retro rockets, which is weird because I'm surprised I missed that step. Oh well, so much for checklists. All right, we'll be fine, though. Okay, so this is all set. I'm going to go ahead and close these out. Close those out. Everything looks good here. We didn't need to manually fire a retro. We are now post-retro. So let's see here. Post-retro. Retro jettison. I did it already. Boop. All done. Retro jettison's on. And we already took care of it. It's all set. Jettison retro. I'll push it one more time just for victory. Ah, delightful. Go back. We're going to go down here. Post-retro jettison. Now it's time to run our... Let's get this thing ready to get bounced around. So we're going to shut this off. Off. Arm, because we're going to need that later. And that's about it. So in a moment, we should have this computer running. Again, it's loading the re-entry program here. Again, we can't do anything until aux tape is green, which is interesting because if you look over here at the little aux tape light, it is green. We got to wait until we can actually bop that button so we can begin our re-entry sequence. All right, set prop to open. I did that already. Control power to Acme. I did that already. Aux tape is green. Computer start. HF frequency checklist. All right, let's go ahead and bang through that real quick. Run. I'm just going to make sure this is set correctly so they can hear us. That's it. All right, post-retro jettison, and we're looking good. So let's see here. I'm going to speed up time a little bit so we can go ahead and get the computer running. Come on, Mr. Computer. There it goes. Sweet. So now I push that button, and automatically the computer is going to go ahead and begin its re-entry process. Now, if you know it's the re-entry from Mercury, we would actually take the entire PC. Woo! Apparently I fell to the rocket. We'd take the entire capsule here, and we slowly rotate it so we have even heating on the way down. You can see my little nozzles kind of working us over here. I'm going to kind of relax. Crack my back a bit. Good time to go ahead and check some of our little settings here. And looking, we've got no oxygen apparently, so we're dying. Come over here. We got plenty of propellant left on the RCS. I would imagine there's nothing left in the OMS, which makes sense because it's no longer part of us. So this is all set. I'm going to go ahead and close that. Don't need that anymore. And the only thing we need to worry about now is going to be these two switches and the fact that we're going to be re-entering at a much higher and more oblique angle than intended. So we're going to die. It's going to be fun. All right, line ourselves up. Looking pretty groovy. I'll speed up time a little bit here. Now, this is the fun part. So how do we know that we're re-entering? Well, the game unfreezes itself. That's the first thing it does. The next thing you'll notice is your orbital speed starts bleeding off. But the most important part, and this is the part everybody loves, is your longitudinal acceleration, for whatever reason, starts to show a slight uptick as you start getting that natural resistance. I'll speed up time a little tiny bit here. Okay. Oh boy, we're going to re-enter regardless of how incompetent my little effort was there. Now, one cool thing you can do is this little propellant quantity gauge. You can actually turn it on by going like this, and it shows you exactly how much you have left. So if you're doing any sort of orbital maneuvering or anything like that, you can just take a look at it yourself. All right, just confirming everything looks pretty good here. Now, if it's an emergency, we can flip to rate command really quickly and actually control that directly if we have to. Again, I'm not worried about it too much here. All right, acceleration is now at about a quarter of a gravity, which is it's enough. You'd be able to feel it. Looking out the window, though, you can see it's going to start getting a little bumpy in a second. Remember, we're hitting the ground a lot harder than we were supposed to. So we'll see exactly what happens here. All right, we're about half a G, which is that's substantial. You're going to start feeling that tug. All right, let's check my re-entry checklist. All right, when we get to 40,000 feet, we push a button. When we get to 10,000 feet, we push a button. When we get to 500 feet, we push a button. Got it. You can see my RCS system is basically wasting all my fuel, which is completely intentional. I don't need it. It's not like I'm going to use it. All right, we're kind of skidding. If I didn't know any better, I'd say we're skidding a little bit here. Oh, this is the fun part. All right, I'm just going to go ahead and tighten my safety belt just a tiny bit here. Oh, I feel a tug in my chest. This vehicle is wild in VR because your face distance from the top of this capsule is squat. Now, I've actually watched some neat re-entry videos from this perspective. It doesn't look like much, believe it or not. Like, I mean, you can see that I got this big old fire kind of coming off me right now, but you don't really see that until, oh, there it is. The very late part, oh my. Apparently this is getting a little of the G-forces. Actually, it's not bad yet. Oh my. So we just bled out about 2,000 miles an hour. Ooh. Oh my, that's 10 gravities. Oh, that hurts. I think we're going to survive another day. 40,000 feet. We're going to go ahead and open up this hatch here. Boop, boop. We got to wait for the fire to stop first. Otherwise, because we'll melt our parachute at this speed. All I have to do is bop this button. 50,000 feet. So for anybody who likes to play like fighter pilot games, oh yeah, we entered way too steep. I'm amazed this thing survived this. I cannot deploy that parachute until we start to get rid of some of that fire there. I gotta get rid of some of that fire. There it is. Parachute out. Ooh, that was close. Yeah, I hope we are landing in water and not land. Oh, lucky day. All right, we're going to go ahead and bop the next button when we get to 10,600 feet. Go ahead and check my checklist real quick here. And let's see, high altitude drogue. We need to do 10,600 feet. It's going to be the next button. Well, that was fun. So hopefully you guys liked this video. Again, I think that was a pretty enjoyable little ride. Next time I do this, you have to remind me, like by screaming at the screen, to make sure I orient myself before attempting re-entry. I'm sure I'm not even in the Pacific Ocean anymore. Actually, we'll go get the map real quick. Let's find out how off course we are. Oh my gosh, we're in... Whoa, that was close. We're supposed to have landed over here. And you can see we basically landed, yeah, pretty much right in Africa. So that's perfectly fine, I'm sure, but, you know, next time. All right, so we're waiting for this little light to pop on. It'll pop on once we get a little bit lower here. I don't think I can speed up time because we're in the nasty atmosphere. One thing you can do if you want to settle that stuff down, because all it's doing is burning all the time, so you can actually just shut it off. And that means we're now just falling on our own. You don't have to deal with all that stuff ejecting and popping all over the time. These are so much fun to play with. I just love how you have like gauges for fuel in this thing. Like that's like, there's something very weird about that. Not like negative weird, but like, huh. I mean, somebody had thought of that. You know what I mean. I'm going to take a look out the window again. Stick my face. There's the beautiful ocean. In this case, it's the Indian Ocean. And fingers crossed that they can come find us. Because, like I said, we did not enter very smoothly there. This light's about to pop on. I always get which switch this is wrong. There it is. Click. And there goes our big parachute. And now we don't have to worry about anything until this is about 500 feet. In which case, we got to bop the attitude button to go ahead and straighten ourselves up. Because, you know, we have a bad attitude. Got the back. Nice gentle descent. Wouldn't this really, really suck if there were like a storm going through that we just passed through with a big parachute like this? Yikes, we'd snap ourselves right in two. All right, confirm everything looks okay here. 10.6. Okay, do we have a post-landing? I don't think we have a post-landing. Yep, everything looks good. Landing attitude press when we get within 500 feet. Not bad. So general comments, I really do like the spacecraft. We're going to have to continue and take a look at like some of the other missions, like the Agena Rendezvous missions. I've played a little bit around with the EVA stuff. I find the controls a little on the wonky side. So unfortunately, we'll see not as much of that as we'll see some of the other things as well. Apollo is still very intimidating, even for me. I've definitely played with it. I've had good success with it. You know, I've been able to do the lunar lander action and everything. But it's just, it's a project. It's going to be like a 10-parter that I'll have to put together during like a Christmas break or something like that. All right, we're just about ready to smack into the ocean here. Look out my window here. Pretty smooth, pretty smooth. Now, the neat thing with Gemini, I always got a kick out of this, is when you go to landing attitude, it actually tips the capsule forward like an amusement park ride. So that when we land, we actually land at the bottom. Looking out the front windshield, looking pretty good. All right, we need to get down to about 500 feet here. Oh, man, was that a fun ride down. That would have sucked. I think I always think of the poor people who do the Soyuz capsules when it doesn't quite hit the atmosphere right, and you get the same kind of experience. They'll do get things like 15, 20 Gs, and it's like, ugh, God, that's uncomfortable. So when this one goes to the Smithsonian Museum a little bit later on, they're gonna be like, where'd the heat reentry shield go? And I'd be like, up in smoke. Okay, we're about 1,000 feet to go, getting ready on the landing attitude button. All right, you better change your attitude to a serious landing, mister. And landing attitude button. Oh, my neck. And let's hope we don't drown. Sploosh. Mission accomplished. I shouldn't be singing. But other than that, hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. Like I said, these are fun to make because Gemini is an amazing system. Later on, we'll have to play with EVA and Agena. Enjoy.